Algebra 2 Notes, 8.5 Part 1, Adding and Subtracting Rational Expressions. To help us with this, it's helpful to think about first how we learn to add and subtract fractions in 5th grade. So first thing we need to do is find a common denominator. So for this 4 and 5, we can get a common denominator of 20. So we need to take both of these, first 2 times 5. That will become 15 twentieths. And then over here, we're going to take 5 times 4 to get to 20. We get 8 twentieths, which if we add these up would be 23 over 20. All right, if I go over to one that has a variable in it, remember once you get that common denominator, we can put it down to one fraction instead of two separated fractions. So if I do look at this last one over here, we can rewrite that as y to the second minus 2 all over 3. And that's all we can simplify. Go ahead and pause the video and try the second and third ones. 5/18 and x plus 3 all over 5. All right, so the key is kind of, if we look back to this first one, it's like, what is this first denominator missing that the second one has? That's how I think about doing it when we have a binomial or a trinomial in the denominator. So let's go ahead and look at the notes. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. There we go. Adding rational expressions. So what you first want to do is factor the denominators. Now, one thing students sometimes try to do is like cancel these x's off. Remember, the only time you can cancel x's off is if it's a multiplication problem. So if I rewrite the denominator and factor it, we can break it into x and x, multiply to be 2, 2 and 1, but I want it to be a negative, so we need to make both those be negatives. Negative 3, and then multiply to be a positive 2. All right, so now I can think, what does this first one not have that the second one has? So the second factor's denominators are x minus 2 and x minus 1. We already have the x minus 1. We're just missing the x minus 2. So if I'm going to multiply by the denominator by x minus 2, I also have to do it to the numerator to keep this equation or expression equivalent. So if we rewrite this, it's going to be x times x minus 2 all over x minus 1 times x minus 2. And it seems like you should want to cross off these x minus 2's, but if we did that, that'd just be what we started with. So we don't want to do that yet at this point anyway. All right, remember up above when we had a common denominator, like 20, we could then rewrite it as one fraction instead of two separated fractions. So let's go ahead and put these together as one fraction. So we x times x minus 2 plus 2x minus 1 all over x minus 1 times x minus 2. Okay, from there, we can then just combine like terms on the top. So we need to distribute our x. And we still have the plus 2x minus 1. So those two will end up canceling out. Denominator is still x minus 1 times x minus 2. So since this is a negative 2x and a positive 2x, we just have x squared minus 1 all over x minus 1 times x minus 2. Now normally you would be done here, but this one, the numerator actually factors. So this is now looking like a problem that we had in 8.4. So we can factor the numerator to be x plus 1 times x minus 1. Okay? So then any of those factors on the numerator can simplify with any factors on the denominator. So your answer is x plus 1 times x minus 2. All right, let's try the next one. I'm just going to rewrite this so I have a little bit more space. Okay, so go ahead and try to factor the denominator. Guess I'm just going to rewrite this here. So the only really factor we can pull out is this denominator right here. We can take an x out. Okay, so now we think, okay, what does the second denominator have that the first one didn't? The first one was missing that x. So we had to take the numerator and the denominator times x. Was the second one missing anything that the first one had? Nope, it's good. So if we rewrite it, x times x plus 1 minus 2, right, plus the negative, all over x times x minus 1. All right, again, go ahead and distribute your x through. So x squared plus x minus 2 all over x times x minus 1. And then again, do just double check, can I simplify anything else? So see if you can factor the numerator. And finally, once we factor it, we can cross off those common factors there. So x plus 2 all over x would be simplified. All right, go ahead and pause the video and try the next two. The next two are very similar to these. See if you can try those. All right, take a look at this third one here. So we can leave it 2x minus 2 all over x plus 2x minus 2. Or we can take that 2 out of the numerator. 2 times x minus 1 all over x plus 2 times x minus 2. Over on the second, or the last problem on the front page, we simplify it and then we end up getting x plus 3 2 times on the denominator. Notice up here, we had to multiply this first one times x plus 3 because it had one of them, but it didn't have both of them. So it needs to have exactly the same thing in the denominators. And that numerator does not factor, so we'll just leave it like that. All right, let's go to the subtraction ones. We do these the same way. The only tricky part is with this minus sign, that's going to that whole numerator. So we need to make sure we distribute that negative. So if I factor the first one here, I can take out an x. Second one, I can take a 2 out. If I rewrite that, I'll have x plus 2 over x times x minus 2 minus x plus 2 over 2 times x minus 2. So if we look at that second one, what is the first one missing that the second one has? The only thing that's missing is that 2 down there. It has the x minus 2. It doesn't have the x, but we'll add it over there. So we need to multiply the denominator and numerator by 2. Okay, if we look at the second one, just like we looked at a minute ago, it's missing the x. So we need to multiply the numerator and denominator by x. So we're going to get 2 times x plus 2 all over 2x. I'm going to pull that 2 out front, times x minus 2. And then minus x times x plus 2 all over 2x times x minus 2. So now that our denominators are the same, I can rewrite it as one fraction instead of 2. 2x times x minus 2. And then we've got, let's go ahead and distribute this as we go here. So if I put my 2 through, that'll be 2x plus 4 Now be careful with this. Minus. So it's actually like this. I might just change this to like a -1. You know what? I'm just going to leave it minus x times x plus 2. Because we need to, when we distribute this, we're not just distributing x through, we're distributing that negative x through. It's like a -1x. So we need to take each of these times -1x. So the first part we'll leave the same, 2x plus 4. So then we have minus x squared and then minus 2x. So go ahead and simplify the numerator. So we've got negative x squared. The 2x's cancel, plus 4 all over 2x times x minus 2. Now this is kind of like a problem we had on 8-4. We need to factor that numerator. So if I wanted to factor that numerator, I can take a -1 out, x squared minus 4. And then actually we can factor that x squared minus 4 as difference of squares. So sometimes there will be this extra step where you need to factor the numerator when you're done, because what's going to happen is one of your factors may cancel. And then you can leave your answer like that. You could distribute your negative. You could write your negative out front. Probably more common is to see it out front. Then we can drop the parentheses. But either of those ways are fine. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So I'm just going to rewrite the problem. And let's go ahead and factor that second part as we rewrite it. So x squared, we break up x and x, 2 and 1, both minus. All right, so what are the denominators missing? This one was missing the x minus 1, so we need to also do it to the numerator. And then I can now, since I have my denominators the same, I can write it as one big fraction with the denominator x minus 2, x minus 1. So we're going to have to FOIL this first part. Now be careful. Here's where you got to be careful with that minus sign. That goes to everything in the parentheses. Everything on the numerator there. So we've got to think of that as like a -1 and distribute. So if I FOIL this first part, we've got first. We can do outside is -1x and inside is positive 3x. I'll just write them out separate. -1x and positive 3x minus 3. Okay, and then distribute your -1. -6x plus 7. That plus 7 is where I see a lot of mistakes. So make sure you're taking that negative all the way through. All over x minus 2 times x minus 1. All right, add like terms for the numerator. So we've got an x squared. Okay, we've got a -1x and -6x. So that'd be a -7x and then plus 3x. So that'd be minus 4x. -3 and 7 would be plus 4. Okay, we can try to factor that one. See if it'll factor out. So we can break it up, x and x, the numerator. 4, we can break up 2 and 2. Yeah, it looks like it works, both minus. So we're just factoring the numerator. It looks just like a problem from 8-4. Okay, then we can finally cross off the x minus 2s, one of the pairs. It doesn't cross off both pairs. So your answer should be x minus 2 all over x minus 1. Okay. All right, why don't you guys pause the video and try the last two. All right, take a look at the last two subtraction problems. And you can see that you should get x squared minus x minus 4 over x plus 5, x plus 1 on the first one. Second one, negative x plus 2 over 4 times x plus 4.